Alright, so we're checking out the BETAFPV Air65 Champions Edition. So this is, if you weren't really sure, this looks almost exactly like the Mobula 6 2024. And it's got pretty much the same color scheme, sort of this charcoal gray, transparent gray frame plus canopy. Looks really, really similar to the Mobula 6 2024 color scheme. These are new colors, as far as I'm aware, for the frame and the canopy for the Air65. And so I'm not going to rehash everything from the Air65 video. There's basically two versions of that, the race and the freestyle version. They come with different motors and props. And now they have this Champions Edition. This has the 30,000 kV, I guess the premium motor, the one, basically it's the black and the red can here. 0702, 30,000 kV. I did a review on this motor already last year. These parts have been around a while already, but they elected to go with the Gemfan 1219 three-bladed props instead of the HQ props. Not exactly sure where this model came from and why they went with a 30,000 kV motor. It's heavier overall. I'll show you the way here in a second. They're using a heavier motor. They're using the 5-in-1 now instead of the 4-in-1 plus the external receiver, and that's actually heavier as well. So we've gone up in weight. So it's before it was 17.1 grams for the standard Air65, and this Champions Edition comes in at 17.7 grams. Now they did give you some in the box, so you do get a spare set of props, of course, and then you get the USB plug, of course, to connect to your Betaflight. But then they include a set of these nylon screws, which are for the motors, and these will reduce the weight a little bit. I think it's about half a gram. So if you want to get down to like 17.2, 17.3, you can swap out the metal screws for the plastic ones on the motors to get closer to that weight. And because that compensates for the heavier flight controller and the heavier motors. Now, obviously, these aren't huge differences in weight because, it's like 0.6 of a gram heavier. And it's still a rocket ship, even at 17.7 grams. I guess, this 30,000 kV motor has a lot of power. Surprisingly, not that much loss in efficiency. Even still on the 1S260 lava battery, my low battery warning came on around 3.5 minutes of flight, and I don't think I fully charged this all the way. For some reason, when I plugged it in, it showed it at like a little under 4.2 volts, which was kind of weird because I thought if I charged this to 4.3 volts or 4.35. So apparently this wasn't even a full battery. I still got 3.5 minutes on this setup here, which was surprising because it's heavier, it's got a much higher kV motor, and this prop is also less efficient than the HQ prop. So it's kind of interesting with these choices. The performance on this one, it's just like the 30,000 kV motor that you saw from the Hummingbird RS video, the one from Newbie Drone. The kV is, in my opinion, too high for regular people. Yeah, there's probably some pro racers out there that are thinking 30,000 kV, that's way too low. I mean, I need 45,000 kV. Apparently there's kV motors that are that high, I've heard. So kind of crazy. If you want a rocket ship that's going to go around the track in like a minute and burn your battery out, I suppose that's doable for those really skilled pilots. But for me, and I think for most regular people, 30,000 kV is a little bit on the high side. I got it under control after the first few flights. It gets away from you very quickly if you aren't really paying attention. If you're flying in a small space, you crash right away, and that's okay. It's very durable. They did modify this thing a little bit to help with durability, so they put some glue or something on the UFL connector there, so hold that down so that's not going to pop off. Again, this canopy is a new color, but it's also been modified. They gave you a spare. They've altered it here on these sides, and it's also here as well, so that it doesn't interfere with the UFL connector. Same camera, I think it's the CO3. I don't think any difference there. Still quite a bit of camera angle, and the same Air65 frame. Everything else is the same, just a little bit heavier motor, a little bit heavier 5-in-1. And if you're wondering what the difference in the weight between the 4-in-1 and the 5-in-1, so the 4-in-1 with the receiver versus the 5-in-1 with the built-in receiver, it's about 0.3 of a gram to 0.4 of a gram, like around 0.35 grams heavier for the 5-in-1. So that's what they went with here. Honestly, with the higher kV motor and the 260 milliamp hour battery, I think it's at least 3 minutes of flight is adequate, and then it is just kind of wild. I mean, it's like you're trying to ride one of those like bulls, like those bull rides at the bar. It's pretty. It's got a lot of just like the newbie drone one. It's got a lot of power you got to sort of tame and keep under control, which it can be challenging, but it's a lot of fun still. And I'll just show you what this weighs on my scale. It's a little over 17.7 grams. And then with the 260-1S, we're just under 24.8 to 2 grams. Anyway, some interesting decisions they made with this model here. I'm not sure if it's just in response to the newbie drone model, which, that one comes in at 16.5 grams with 30,000 kV motors. That has some other issues that I made a video on my second channel. You can go watch that if you missed it. But yeah, I think what I would do is, if you do want to get this version of the Air65, and you find that the motors are a little bit too fast for you and you get just a little bit too much speed, if you're flying in a smaller area, just put in a motor output limit in, and that'll artificially reduce the kV from 30,000 to, you can do pretty much whatever. I recommend something around, say, 25,000 kV, so maybe you put in a motor output limit of maybe 80%, somewhere in there, and I think you'll find that it's going to be a lot more controllable with a little bit more throttle resolution. Otherwise, it's pretty much the same drone, the Air65, just with the 5-in-1 and a little bit heavier motor. And if you're wondering why it's heavier, it's because it's got the ball bearings instead of the bushings. The silver motors, they're basically a little bit cheaper. They come in bushings, and supposedly they wear out a little bit faster, but honestly, unless you fly pretty much 24/7 for like a couple of years, you probably won't notice much difference between the two motors. It's just that the ones with the ball bearings, these black and red ones, they're a little bit heavier. But supposedly the bearings do offer a little bit more durability. That's what I've heard through the grapevine. So if you do crash pretty severely, then maybe this one here is the way to go, because if you're really worried about crashing and having to replace motors, then you might as well go with the more premium motor to help you with that, the durability. But in terms of pricing, I was not told what the difference would be. I'm imagining it's probably going to be the same, but possibly just a few dollars more. So I'm still expecting it to be maybe around $100 if there is a price increase. So maybe $99 would be like my guess if they do increase the price, or it'll be just the same price, around $95. Anyway, those are all the differences. I'll link the original Air65 video down in the video description. You guys can check that out. I think I flew that mainly with the 300 milliamp hour battery, but I think the 260 is the way to go on these really light setups. So I would recommend that battery. So I'll link that battery in the description as well. That'll do it for this video. Talk to you guys in the next one.